Hi everyone, it's Nicole and I'm here to share the books that I read in July of 2021. And this year the way I decided to do the process is I basically use one card per book. Where last year I would put the books on one card and then I would use another card to kind of do a little summary of the book. This year I decided that I was just going to print the photos a little smaller so they wouldn't take as much real estate on the 3x4 card, and then I would kind of just embellish on that little card, just a little bit of stickers, add the star rating and call it good. And I have to say I'm really enjoying that process, really enjoying it, because really I don't need to put a little bit about the book. I can just go on Goodreads and just kind of see it. I just love flipping through the books and seeing all the books that I read this year. And because I did it this way for the books, I thought, you know what? I didn't keep track of all the movies and all the TV series that I watched in 2021, but I'm keeping track for 2022. And I want to do the same thing. I don't know if I'm going to do like movies and series in the same album. Probably. I'll probably movies I watched, and then I'll just, kind of do a little card about all the movies, and then I can kind of do the same thing, rate it by star rating. And then I want to do the same thing with the series that I watched, because I think it'd be fun to kind of see what series we watched. If I would have started that 10 years ago, it'd be fun to see that 10 years ago, I was watching Grey's Anatomy and I'm still watching Grey's Anatomy. I think that would be interesting. Okay, so you remember me talking on the previous videos how there was a few months that I only read 4 books a month. Well, the reason that there's only July in this video is because this month, the month of July, I read 17 books. And it's because I started this series and I just got totally hooked. And I have the type of personality that I can't start a series and then wait like 6 months before I read the next book. I can't do that. If I start a series, I might not jump in the second book right away, but the next month I'll read the second book and then the third book and then, kind of go that way. I can't let months go by before I read the next book. But anyway, I'll tell you what series that is as we're doing this. So the first book I read was The Flip Side by James Bailey, and it follows Josh, and he kind of is down and out and lost his job, had to move back in with his parents, and then on a whim he decides to take a coin and flip, and decides that all his decisions are going to be made by flipping a coin, and it goes into a romance. I really enjoyed this book, and I don't think I rated it here on Goodreads, but it was a 4-star read. I really enjoyed it. And the second book I read in July was Be the Girl by K.A. Tucker, and I talked in the last video about how I love this author, and her stories are always so different. And this follows a 16-year-old. Her name is Aria, and she moves to a new place, moves in with her mom to kind of get away from something that happened, and then she meets the new neighbors, and it just goes on from there. So good. 4 stars. The next book I read was Arc by Veronica Roth, and this is a sci-fi book, and it's all part, I think it's called the Fast Forward collection, and if you have the Kindle app, those books are all available, and there's like 6 or 7 books in that series, and they're all novellas, and they were just fun to read. And this one had to do that the earth, something was going to happen. It was going to be the end of the world, and they were all, they had built this ark, and they were trying to bring, all the different plants and everything on this ark, if you will, spaceship, so that wherever they landed, they would have as many plants as possible and that kind of stuff. And we follow this character, Samantha. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. And then the next book I read was also part of that collection. It's called You Have Arrived at Your Destination by Amar Tolls. And this has to do if, the cars drove for you, and this is what happened to this one woman, that the car kind of took over and she couldn't get it to stop. It was really, it was interesting. I gave it 3 stars. Wasn't my favorite out of those stories, but I enjoyed it. Now, this is the series that I started this month, and that kind of, I read 100 books this year, and 20 of those books were from that series, because again, I like to finish series, and this series has 20 books. So as the books come up, I'm not going to, talk too much about it, because it kind of follows the same characters. Just, you meet a bunch of characters in the first book, and then each book focuses on a set of characters. But it's called The Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon, and it is about some human girls that get abducted by aliens, and then they're really bad, and then they kind of get dumped on this planet because there was something wrong with the ship, and they kind of had to unload them, so they left them there to die. But they soon realized that they're not alone on this planet, and there's blue aliens, and most of their tribe is all men, because all the women most of them have passed away. So they're really excited that, there's that many women on this spaceship. And I have to say, this is a smut book, a schmexy book. The whole series is like that, but there's actually a story, and the story was interesting. So I read all 20 books. So the next book I read was the next book in the series, Ice Planet Honeymoon, and it follows Vectel and Georgie. So that's 2 characters, that we met in the first book. Then the book that I read after that is The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levinseller. I really loved her first 2 books, which was Daughter of the Pirate King, and there was a couple of books, but this one follows Alexandra, and she's tired of being overlooked, so she comes up with a plan to gain power. She's going to woo the Shadow King, and she's going to marry him, and then she's going to kill him and take over his kingdom. Well, it never goes as expected, right? So it kind of is a fantasy and romance book, and it didn't disappoint. I loved it just as much as I loved Daughter of the Pirate King. I think anything that this author will write, I'm going to want to read, because I really like the way she writes her stories. So the next 5 or 6 books are all part of that series. So we have Barbarian Alien, Ice Planet Honeymoon, that we follow Rahash and Liz, Barbarian Lover, Ice Planet Honeymoon, we follow Aiko and Kira, and then there's Barbarian Mine, and then I read Ice Planet Holiday, and then I read Ice Planet Honeymoon, which follows Ruck and Harlow. And because I was in such a slump, and these books just caught my attention and I wanted to read every book, I just went with it, and that was fine. So the next book I read was The Last Conversation by Paul Tremblay, and this is part of that fast forward collection that I was talking about earlier. And this is a novella, and it says, it explores the answer in a chilling story about identity and human consciousness. Imagine you've woken up in an unfamiliar room with no memory of who you are, how you got there, and where you were before. All you have is the disconnected voice of an attentive caretaker. And I gave it 3 stars. I quite enjoyed it. It was good. It was probably like a 3.5 stars. The next book I read was 4321 by Courtney C. Stevens, and that follows a group of kids that were in a bus that was that got blown up by terrorists, and the after effect of that, and it was really good. I gave it 4 stars. I really quite enjoyed it. It was heart-wrenching, but it was very entertaining, and I was reading through it quite fast. When you're in a slump, if you can get a book that can keep your attention, that's what you want. So the next So the last book I read in the month of January was another book from that series from the Ice Planet Barbarian, and it was called Barbarians Prize. And that's all the books I read in July. And as you can tell, there is not a lot of decoration on these little cards. I basically just put the star rating, maybe a few little stickers, but I really like that when I look through the sheets right now, like the page protectors, and I go through them, all I see is just the books, and I love that. That's gonna pretty much end it for today, or finish it for today. And I think I'm going to have 3 more videos. I'm going to have August and September together, October and November together, and then December I'm going to do it by itself again because I read 17 books in December. Spoiler alert. But that's it. That's all the books that I read in the month of July. And I want to thank you so much for watching. Bye.